Welcome back everybody to All About the Bash here on the Odd Sided Dice YouTube channel. In this video we're going to be getting on with the next member of our Inquisitor 28 kill team build. And still taking inspiration from John Blanche's Inquisitor sketchbook, in this video we're going to be having a crack at a Sister Repentia. Now although these models are available from Games Workshop as a standard kit, it wouldn't be a very good kit bashing video if all I did was stick together something that was commonly available off the shelf. And so I've basically raided my bits box for all the bits I'm going to try and use for this miniature. And for this model, those parts are going to come from a lot of different kits. Not only GW, but also from Frostgrave kits as well. So first off, for the body, I really wanted to give that ragged look that the image from the Inquisitor sketchbook has. And as such, I decided to use one of the female models that comes in the Corvus Cabal kit, as it really tied that more ragged look in the clothing. But also, because it's one model, it gives me a solid base to work for from the rest of the miniature. So after the basic cleanup with knife and hobby file to remove any of the nubs or any of the mould lines, and with a liberal splash of plastic glue, now have the foundation for the model going forwards. Now as you can see in the top left hand corner, we have the artwork image from the Inquisitor sketchbook, and you can see the bold head that the sister has. Now because I've got plenty of the bold heads hanging around from the House de Lac kit due to using models for other members of this kill team, I decided to use one of these as the head for the miniature. The added benefit of going this way is because the Corvus Cabal kit and the de Lac kit are similar in scale, it's just a case of removing the head of the Corvus Cabal miniature and replacing it with that of the House de Lac. But because the Corvus Cabal head came actually attached to one of the body parts, the problem is now that what I'm going to have to do is try and fettle the neck joint so it's actually going to fit the head of the House de Lac head. And going to our trusty hobby knife, it's just a case of removing small parts of material and constantly keep checking with the part that you're wanting to attach that you don't take too much off. Obviously the hobby knife is not the only tool you can use at this point. We've also got a myriad of choices of files to be able to remove material, smaller quantities each time, when we're getting close to getting that suitable joint between the two parts of the model. Now, those of you who would have watched these videos also know that I like putting the head on pretty much last. So now we're going to move on to the arms. And the arms are actually going to come from the Frostgrave kit for the Knoll Warriors, as these not only give me the dynamism that I wanted in the model, but also they've got that ragged look that's going to tie in with the overall aesthetic of this build. Now obviously the problem is here is these are not the arms that were designed to go with this Corvus Cabal body straight off the sprue from that kit. So it's going to take us a bit of work to now and try to get a more secure joint point between the body and these arms. It's going to take a lot of time us removing any ridges and flattening out areas to make contact points as large as possible. It also means that we're going to have to do some kind of green stuff work here to try and disguise some of the joints that maybe aren't going to be as true as we want them to be. But it's always best to put as much work in at this point as possible, because the more work you put in at this point means the less bad joints that you've got to try and fill and sculpt for. So once that arm's now in position, I can look about where it's going to be positioned to give myself the most dynamic look that I want for this model. Because this model was running, I want it to be able to throw its arms forward, and as such the use of the plastic glue again just gives me that little bit of working time to try and reposition the arms. But the problem with the arms on this build is not going to be the left hand one, which we've got now secured firmly in position, but it's going to be the right hand arm and the arm that's going to be holding the weapon. Now at this stage, what I decided to do is that I wanted to make sure that the model wasn't rolling about the table because it had the arms now attached. So just with a bit of super glue, I'm just going to attach it to a bottle lid, because this is the way that I then attach models to when I'm painting. So it just makes it easier for me to move it around the table and work on it as I want. And because of this, because of being able to hold the model better, it's now to move on to the green stuff side and trying to hide some of these joints. Now, lucky enough, the Corpus Cabal model seems to have some kind of fur or feathered collar running across the top of the model. So, showing the versatility of the ever trusty hobby knife, now we're going to use it as a sculpting tool to try and replicate that look of that fur that's surrounding the top of the model. Once we get it all round, it's being used to fill in the other side of the model as well, where the other arm is going to be attached. So this, when it goes off, is going to give us the adequate junction point between this arm and the rest of the model. And once it's gone off, it's just a question of making sure that we've got all the parts clean that's going to be part of this joint, removing all the mold lines again, just a liberal file just to make sure that the surface that we're attaching together is roughed up, because it's going to give us the better bind when the glue starts to go off. And it's just a case of a little bit of glue and the arm can be securely fixed into place on now the green stuff that's gone hard. And then once the fixture is secure, it's just the same as what we did on the other arm at the other shoulder point. Just use a bit more green stuff and our hobby knife to try and replicate that fur collar and hide the joint between the two parts. Then finally, it's time to get onto the fun stuff. Now looking at the weaponry. Now in the image you can see in the corner, the sister is armed with looks like a pair of bolt pistols and some kind of sword, but actually in the standard army rules, she's armed with one of those big chainsaw eviscerators. Now, at this point between the armour of the null model that we've used to the chainsaw that we're going to use from one of the Chaos Marine kits, the actual joint point is really, really small. So it's not going to be as strong as what we've created with the arms. So because of this reason, now we're going to turn to our pin vise and have a look at putting a pin in to make sure that this joint is secure and as strong as possible. So having sized the size of drill I'm going to use in the pin vise to the cross-section area of the cable that I'm going to use, and again this is going to be the bit of that green cable that we used in the servo school build for creating those metallic tentacles. So again, we're just dipping into stuff that we've got lying about, that we've used on other builds and that we use here, there and everywhere going forwards. So once it's glued into position on one hand, it's just a case of slowly but surely taking down the length until the hole that we've drilled in the chainsaw side now allows that chainsaw to now fit flush up against the hand on the model. Now, because at this point we're making use of two dissimilar plastics and gluing plastic to metal, it's at times like this that we've got to step away from the plastic glue because it's not going to give us a secure bond. So we're going to go to and look at the attachment of these two parts using some super glue. Now, once chainsawed in position, we can have a look, and again, not always constantly does super glue go cure straight away. So it still gives us a little bit of playing up time to be able to reposition that chainsword into the position where we're happy with it on the model. And once we're happy with the position, we just leave it for a few seconds to cure so we know that it's as secure as it can be. So now it's time for the final crowning piece of this build. The attachment of the head in position. Now we've got all the body parts moving to make it feel as natural a position as possible. It's at times like this, often, and in other builds, you've seen me used blue tack or poster putty to have a look about where it would sit in position on the model. But for now, I'm happy with the joint that I've made at the neck. So it's just now a little dab of glue, and then use a pair of tweezers because I can't get my slightly more fatter fingers into the area between the chainsword and the neck. So I'm going to use just a pair of tweezers just to pick my model up and just get it into the position that I'm happy with. Now basically all the main components of this build are now complete. So it's a case of just to make sure that I'm happy with all the positioning of everything, all the sculpting I've done on the green stuff. Now one thing I did notice at this point is you can see from the artwork image that the Sister Repentia actually retains some of her armour. So at this point what I'm going to try and do is try and recreate that a little bit by using one of the small shields that you get from the Primaris kits. Now cutting this down, I'm going to put this as so like a little remnant of armour from her sister battle armour that she would have been wearing before she got made one of these Sister Repentias. And it's little additions like this that really set off the aesthetic of the model. And then all that remains is to get some paintwork on the model and really and truly finish it off the build. So here she is, my take on the Sister Repentia, inspired by John Blanche artwork for our Inc 28 or our Inquisitor 28 Kill Team project. Thanks very much for taking the time out to watch this video. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe to this. There will be more coming up in the future. And go back and look at the other builds, especially for the Inquisitor 28 Kill Team that we've been working on over the last couple of months. Also, please check out our other social media, our Facebook page, for news and updates from the podcast. And if you'd like to support us in a little way, we don't have a Patreon account for the Odd-Sided Dice podcast, but we do have a Ko-fi link that's available in the description below, should you want to give us a little bit of support for getting the parts that we use for creating these kit bash videos. So thanks again for watching, and see you on the next bash.